Hello, Naomi.
Hi there.
Welcome to Your Stable Friend. If you want to find us on social media, you can do so at The Equestrian Pedestrian, The Evolving Equestrian, Bitless and Beautiful, and Summerwood Stables. You're welcome to friend me personally if you like. And we would love to ask you to please take a moment, even right now, just to hit the subscribe button for this YouTube channel. So this is going to be fascinating because Naomi grew up in a very special way and is going to share that with us, and then we're going to draw some very interesting relationships to what Naomi is going to tell us. Naomi, how did you grow up?
So I grew up in a high control religion or a cult. It was an offshoot of one of the 80s Jesus cults that just kind of kept on going. If you're interested in that, there's a really good podcast on Spotify. It's called The Way International. And it was a very intense cult, and it controlled your entire life. They would call it a lifestyle even themselves. But yeah, so I'm no stranger to the topic of brainwashing.
And you were born into it,
yes.
right? So, did you, when you actually were born, were your parents already in the cult?
Yeah, and they had been since probably the 80s, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but my parents, my entire community that I grew up in, we didn't have friends or pretty much any connections that were outside of that group.
Okay, so, I look at myself a little bit like a cult survivor. Because when we talk about what happens in a cult, we talk about brainwashing, we talk about gaslighting, we talk about the whole idea of all of your peers and your entire community being involved in doing a certain thing a certain way, making it okay, because everybody, you can clearly see everybody's doing it, and that's supposed to make something okay. So I feel that that's a pretty good description of the equestrian community. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of my biggest red flags for anything is just the mentality of the way it's always been is the way you have to keep doing it. You don't change when you learn new information, which is something very rampant in the religious community. And if anyone tells you a different way of doing things or shows you a different way or even proposes that there could be a better way of doing something, thinking about something, living your life, they are wrong because that is not the way that it is done.
So I woke up on Sunday morning to something on my Facebook feed that really disturbed me. But apparently, out of thousands and thousands of people that had seen this post and thousands of people that made comments, I was like the only person that it disturbed. And that always makes me really wonder what is going on. Like, are there two or more realities going on? And I live in one and everybody else lives in another, or this group lives in another. I was watching a video, this again, on my news feed. I didn't go looking for this. It was suggested to me by Facebook. It was a young girl. It turns out that she's 12 years old, and who looks like she has grown up in the rodeo lifestyle. And she was doing some sort of an exhibition where she was Roman riding. And for anybody who's not sure about what that is, that's when you are standing up on your horse, actually two horses, 1 foot on one horse, 1 foot on the other. You're holding on to, if you're riding with a bridle, which she was, you're holding onto the reins very high over the horse's head. At least one of the horses was bitted. I couldn't tell if the other one was bitless or not. And another horse joined them for a little while. A younger horse that she's working with, a Mustang. That horse looked very, very uncomfortable. Really looked like he didn't know why he was there or what he was doing. And she was doing this Roman riding. The crowd was, of course, going crazy and loving it. And she's, taking her bows and, making little, gestures to the crowd. And then, for the grand finale, that was bothersome to me in a couple of different ways, which I won't even address, because maybe that's my own thing. But what I thought was really, really hideous was, for the grand finale, she rode her horses into several open flames, fire, torches, burning torches, where at first she serpentined around the torches like barrel racing, and then she straddled the two horses and the fire went underneath her, and one horse is on one side of the fire and the other horse is on the other. Basically what I'm saying is way too close to an open flame, where in my mind, I would want a horse, if they sensed or saw fire, to run in the other direction. If God forbid I was not on my property and a fire broke out, I would want the horses to go with their instinct and run away from the fire. Not even think for one moment that it's okay to run to the fire.
Yeah.
When we teach an animal, when we gain, people were saying things like, oh my God, those horses love her so much and they trust her so much. And I was thinking, yeah, and what is she doing with that trust? She's betraying their trust. She's endangering them. She is exploiting them for the accolades and the applause and whatever this is doing for her ego. Or maybe it's something her parents, have pushed her into, and that's the way that she's trying to gain acceptance from people around her, to do this. Whatever it was, it made me so sad on so many levels. What do you think? Am I crazy?
Not at all. I mean, it's one thing to put yourself in danger, to make that decision as a performer or an artist or whatever, to do something that's risky, that you understand the risks of for yourself, but to have an animal that didn't consent to that and doesn't really know what's going on and put them in danger, I think is really morally problematic. But considering the fact that she's 13 and grew up in that world, it probably wouldn't have ever crossed her mind that it was problematic, which brings us back to the whole brainwashing discussion. If you grow up in an environment where certain things are normalized and no one questions it, and people are taught aggressively to not question the methods and the morality, you get situations like that.
And then on top of it, you're praised and your ego is built up around whatever this thing is. So what was really, really bothersome was, often on social media, I feel like for me, it's the emperor's new clothes. And I've said this before. I'm the little boy that sees that man is naked. That emperor has only his crown on and he is stark naked, and I'm the only one to see it. So we had people saying, oh my God, it gave me goosebumps. Oh, that's amazing. Just think of you're doing this at such a young age and you have such a bright future. And, so she's getting all of this praise for it. She's getting all of this, she's getting positive reinforcement. They're positive reinforcement training her to do this. And of course, I don't think there was anybody that said anything negative except for me, but I was immediately labeled a hater. I am a hater. So, how is it that someone would only maybe see a hateful part of my comment and not understand the greater love for the horses, number one, and number two, a greater love for this child who really, if you want to push yourself, you just said it, if you want to really push yourself excessively, if you're so determined at 12 years old to be so disciplined, do ice skating, do gymnastics. Don't drag 2, 3, 4, 5 innocent animals along with you to push them that way. One person said on the thread to me, if those horses didn't want to be there, they wouldn't. What does that mean?
What? Like they can't just pack their bags and go west?
Thank you, Naomi. I said that. I said, can you please explain to me what the escape plan, what their escape plan is? How would those, okay, let's actually say those horses could leave if they wanted to, okay? They did, they had the plan, the idea, okay, we're gonna leave. What does that look like? How does a horse ever leave? A horse can never leave. If one of those horses says, I'm done for the day, I'm walking away, mind you that there's gonna be a very, very, very difficult training session for that horse later behind the barn where nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And that problem's gonna get fixed. A horse cannot, as you just said, pack its bags, give its notice, I'm leaving, here's 2 weeks notice to be fair, and then I'm out of here. How can a horse, of course a horse is there. It's any sort of Stockholm syndrome, it's any kind of, even the horses are involved in the cult. They have to go along with it. They have to. When did you decide that you did not have any of the same beliefs or feelings that your parents and your entire community had? And what was that like?
It was a very long process. It probably started in my mid-teens, and then I don't think I was fully thinking in a different way outside of that until I was in my early 20s, after I had moved entirely across the country and not had any contact with those people for multiple years. That's when finally the brainwashing I felt was chipped away. But for so many people, that never happened.
Why? How did you even decide to leave? I imagine many people stay very close to the community.
Yeah, I didn't, it wasn't quite as hard for me because I felt like even though I still believed everything I was told, I never fit in quite as well as a lot of other people. So I feel like I wasn't getting quite as much positive reinforcement as people that had personalities that could fit into that lifestyle better. And those people that I feel like did fit in to that lifestyle better are the people that never were able to leave. And kids that I grew up with, kids I played with as children, they're still in it today.
What is the answer to help people wake up? Because I've heard over and over, you can't just tell them. They can't hear it. You can't even show them. They'll find some justification. How does one break through? Do you know even some of the methods that they actually use when they try to rescue people from cults?
Getting people to change deeply held beliefs is really difficult. It never happens all at once. It always happens incrementally. And the thing that helped me, I feel like, in my very early stages, the things that I think help other people the most are just asking people questions. It's called the Socratic method. So like, oh, you think this, if we were going to use it, in the horse world, you think bits are okay to use? Do you think it causes the horse any discomfort to have a giant metal bar in their mouth? How do you think you would feel if you had a giant metal bar in their mouth? What do you have to say about the damage that it causes to the horse's teeth and gums and things like that? So like, ask very basic questions. Don't tell people things. Ask them questions, and then they can slowly come to their own conclusion. Because if you just contradict their belief, they're going to shut you out, and they're going to say, no, that's not true, that contradicts my deeply held belief, and I'm right. The only way in is you got to go in the back door and ask people questions about their beliefs so they can start to question it for themselves.
So putting them in a questioning frame of mind is really the way to do it.
Yeah, and you don't have to, switch up your mentality immediately. No one's telling you, I know you've done it this way your whole life, now all of a sudden you have to do it this way. But just think a little bit about it. What if you did? What if your horse could have a more comfortable lifestyle and a better relationship with you than it does?
What about when we are so ingrained in, okay, for instance, let's take this girl again. She grew up in this. It's something that she has probably heroes and role models and mentors that she's looking up to. She wants to emulate them. Is someone like that probably lost?
I don't think anybody is lost, but I do wonder why some people are able to start to question things and some people are not, or at least choose never to. But I know there are people that used to own slaughterhouses that are now vegan. Like, nobody is beyond changing.
Well, that's my question to everybody out there. I changed. I didn't do what we're doing now. I did nothing like what we're doing now. I did all of those things that now I have a really hard time with. Why? Why did it happen to me? Why did I have some kind of awakening out of the blue?
I think it's different for every person, but it always starts with asking those questions or just being able to entertain a different perspective. If you're presented with new information that goes against a deeply held belief, instead of immediately shutting out that new information and getting defensive, some people are a little more susceptible to looking into new things. Some people are more willing to question a deeply held belief.
Well, I hope that just us talking about that might inspire people to look at things that they practice where they've never actually questioned themselves and have said, why? Why is this the way that we do it? And if the answer ever is because that's the way it's always been done, don't you think that's a nice big red flag?
Yeah.
That's being waved around? If you come back to the answer, well, it's the way that it's always been done, that's not a good enough answer.
Yeah, or if you're discounting new information, if there's new, scientific information that's coming out, new studies, new research that's coming out that contradicts the traditional way, some people will try to adapt their reality to their belief instead of change their belief with the new information. So just be willing to look at the new information and consider the new information instead of trying to find a way to jam your own beliefs into what you want to hear, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And then I start to think of it from both sides, because I'm often trying to jam my beliefs into other people's minds. But that's because I was already on the other side, and now I'm on this side. It's not like I was born on this side and I want you to believe me. I was on the other side, and now I'm over here.
It's a frustrating place to be, because it's like nobody knows they're wearing these goggles, and you have taken yours off, and you see the reality of the situation, and they're still looking at things through their colored goggles. And it's so frustrating.
It is.
When someone's so unwilling to just look at things from a different perspective.
It's super frustrating, but it's nothing new. I mean, it's happened in our civilization and society since the beginning of time. Time marches on, things change, we evolve. Some people don't want to, and it's always been that way.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to evolve. Well, this was a fascinating conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And please, if you didn't yet, please hit that subscribe button, and we will see you at the next one.